Very on. Please get ready for Shanti Part. Eyes gently closed, body straight and still. Become aware of the calm, relaxed flow of breath. Total awareness of each inhalation and exhalation. Bring your awareness to the eyebrow center. Visualize a bright red rising sun in the eyebrow center. Become aware of the brightness, the shape, the color. I will chant Om 3 times, then a Vedic hymn. If you wish to join, take a deep breath in. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Hari Om Tat Sat. Bring your palms together, rub your palms. Feel the warmth in your palms. Place them on your eyes 3 times. Gently open your eyes. Sada Shiva Samarambha Shankaracharya Madhyama Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Paramparam. So, we have been discussing about the term Bharat. There have been usually a lot of questions. You are worried about Bharat. Which area is Bharat? Do you have any geographical boundaries? You are not even one country. These are various allegations that are put forward. The thing is, if you want to understand anything, you have to have the right intention. Questioning intention is okay, but being playing blame game or trying to say no, 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 you are wrong, that kind of blame game does not help in any knowledge, in any field of knowledge. So we need to first of all have the right intention towards anything that we want to understand. As you have the right intention, the right information will begin to flow. Same applies to Bharat also. Yes, as we know today, as per the definitions today, in terms of the same currency or same army, we did not have a nation. But we did have something called India. We did have something called Bharat. And this term Bharat, we always try to understand. And most of the time people say, oh, there used to be a king called Bharat and Bharat, and that's how we got the name Bharat. This might be partially true. I do not know, but I find a better explanation. Bha is actually a root word. In Sanskrit, words are formed from root words, from roots. And I think the same thing is in Latin as well. So Bha is a root word. From this, and this means to illumine. And this can be illumination of light, it can be illumination of ideas, it can be illumination of knowledge, it can be in illumination of certain ideologies, but something that spreads light, maybe light of peace, maybe light of calmness, maybe light of knowledge, or maybe just happiness. So whatever light, so that's how the words are derived from a root word. So now here the bha implies illumination, as I just mentioned, the root implies illumination. And rat is actually a pratyaya, ta pratyaya in Kridanta, which implies completely committed to, completely absorbed in, or completely immersed in. So that's how the term Bharat is formed. Something that is completely immersed in light of knowledge here. Because if you go into the history, you will find that. So if you go into the history, you will find that there used to be rishis. Rishis were people who were really interested in knowledge, who were committed to knowledge, who was committed to learning things, and their main intention of learning was further learning, further understanding, what is finding answers to their own questions. It could be related to creation, or it could be related to solutions for people. It could be related to curiosity about the nature. It could be many things. So rishi, that's how the rishis looked for knowledge, went to various teachers, learned from various teachers, and eventually passed on the information to younger generation. Now, one of the natural curiosity of every person, especially if he travels a lot, will be how can there be peace? How can there be no problems for him during his travel? How can there be a support system for him? At least support system in the sense that people are at peace with themselves. They do not, they are not fighting, and they do not treat him as antagonistically. Those can be a very natural outcome of the requirements. And we find that in this country, what we call as Bharat, or you can go to any agricultural country where agriculture is the mainstay, you will find that there is a lot of sharing. There's very less wastage and a lot of sharing. Less wastage because they go through tough times. Agriculturist goes through very tough times. If there is a famine, if there is a dry, if the monsoons are not on time, he goes through very tough times. So there is certainly very emphasis on very less wastage. I still remember when I was a child, my parents used to tell, my mother particularly used to tell me, do not let the food fall on the ground when you're eating food. And she would tell me about saints who would keep a needle with them and a bowl of water with them. And they would pick up whatever grain had fallen, wash it in the water, and then consume it. They would never let anything go waste. And I saw this with my grandfather also, where after completing his food, he would rinse the plate and drink off all that water. So he basically did not let even the juice of the food stay in the plate. He consumed everything. So these are signs of a person who respects food, who respects time, who respects the vagaries of time, who understands the vagaries of time. And it is not that they were monetarily poor. No, they were not monetarily poor. They were setting example as elders. They were following a certain lifestyle which they taught others. So they were walking the talk. So sharing is one very important element in Indian culture, particularly. I'm sure it is there in many other cultures, but Indian culture, Bharatiya culture, you will find this a lot. Any temple which has not been ravaged by enemies in the past, you will find that this culture prevails even today. In mutts, particularly in South India, I have seen that the local communities, they bring all their produce, part of their produce, and contribute to the mutt, where pilgrims who pass that way, they get free shelter and free food, and they can continue with their journey. Students who are coming for studies or who are passing by after having completed studies or looking for another teacher, they also get some shelter there and food there as long as they stay. So these kind of cultures have prevailed of sharing. Sharing, I have seen, it can be in various ways. I have seen in one more beautiful way in Kerala, particularly, where a person, if he's in need of money, a substantial amount of money, maybe it's a daughter's wedding, maybe it is buying some seeds for the crop, or maybe it is buying fertilizers for the crop, or buying or building his own house, or setting up business. What he will do is he will call all his local people, and everyone knows why they are being called. Normally, there will be, it's a tea party kind of thing, but there will be liquor also there. So normally the liquor is banned in Kerala, as far as I know. But these kind of things are done under masters, and masters are allowed to have the country made the toddy. They are allowed to have, or the liquor that comes out of that. So they would call everyone, and everyone would come with a packet, with an envelope, and on the envelope they will write their own name and they will give. Inside could be any amount from 11 rupees or 1 rupee 25 paisa to, of course, nobody gives so less, but it can be any amount till whatever amount the people know what for this meeting has been conducted. So they give a proportionate amount so that the person does not run short of money. And the person does the same thing. He takes the money after the party is over. He keeps a track of uh, how much money was given by each person. And when that person needs money, he may not need also, but if he needs, he calls out for the party. And then everyone comes with a similar amount and they contribute. And every person tries that whatever he had been given, at least it should be so much, or it can be more than that. That is an effort which is made by people. I do not remember what that custom is called, but it's a beautiful custom of sharing. Similarly, mentoring, nurturing. If you know something, you nurture people, you mentor people, you train people, and expand your knowledge and spread your knowledge. Very good quality or very good component of the Indian culture. We find that people used to come from very far off places to learn. Of course, there are a lot of mudslinging also going on in terms of there was casteism, which I will deal with in another talk. And the next talk, I will deal with this casteism talk also. So it was not certainly the way it is brought out. Yes, every system over a period of time goes through a decay, but at the same time, the teachers have their own reasons, the teachers have their own points, and when they put forward something, they must be a reason behind it. And it has, I don't think it has anything to do with caste, because there are plenty of examples which are exceptions to that kind of claim. Mentoring, nurturing, cultivating, these are certain activities which are essential for a person to grow and naturally develop certain qualities, to be observant, to be able to pick up opportunities, to be protective, to be caring, to have positive attitude. Such a person only can sustain education, sustain training, and he can support students and peace. So these are certainly qualities which come out of much training, and it is required to train others as well. The third point, which I would like to highlight, is education and critical thinking. All essential realities are same in life of people, whether too rich or poor or whatever. Practices also have similarities. All are free to choose what to practice and what not to practice, particularly in India. Different locations, different geographical areas have their own rituals, own systems, and everyone is free to create his own practices. Practices are very much related, they may be scientific, but they're very related to one's emotional state. A person's emotion may require something, and the person does it out of his own emotion. And over a period of time, you can find reasons for that. You can find ways to explain why it is done in a certain way. It may have scientific origins also. It may be related to knowledge also. Like now, for every 5 elements which are offered, of course, that is related to knowledge. But there are also temples where they have just one element being offered. So that has more to do with emotion or a person's need. So over a period of time, academicians try to understand these things, and then they have created rituals where 5 elements are being used. All 5 elements are being used. So there the origin becomes knowledge based. Importance is in living those values, living those practices, and commitment to it, learning it, or using it to resolve problems which are faced. If you are trying to find others to resolve your problems, others will make fun of you also, maybe, and they may also uh, put you at a disadvantage. Popular stories of the monkey and the cat. Uh, the cat finds a chapati. I do not remember whether it is the monkey who finds a chapati or cat finds a chapati. But anyway, one of them finds a chapati. And then, so from the same species, another person comes in, and then they start fighting. And this the monkey, if it's the cats who find it, the monkey comes up and says, "Oh, I can help you. I can divide the chapati for you. You don't have to fight." And then he divides it into two. But then he looks at the chapati and says, "Oh, I think this is slightly bigger." Then he takes a bite. And then he again looks. He says, "No, no, now this is slightly bigger." And then he takes a bite. And the end is just the cats don't get the chapati because he has finished off everything. Or maybe, well, yeah, something like that is the story. So this is what happens when you start looking up to others to solve your problems. And you don't always get people who have selfless interest. So these are three basic pillars. One is sharing, the other is mentoring, nurturing, or cultivating values, cultivating resources. And the third is education or critical thinking, developing critical thinking. The fourth is a very important aspect, which is the attitude. What attitude towards things you must have? If you are a robber, if you are a thief, if you are a scavenger, you will have the attitude of objectification. You will look at things as if they are something which have to be used and thrown away, maybe. Because you don't know how they came into existence, you do not know the pains behind it, and once you have used it, you don't know how to use it also. So you may misuse it also, and may not use it properly also. And once uh, once you find that you're not having any use for it, you just throw it away. But a person who gets it after a lot of trouble, you will try to keep finding uses for this. In India, this is very famous. If you have a cloth, if you buy a shirt or a towel or something, people don't really throw it. They either pass it on to somebody else or keep on finding some use for it, either to wipe something or to make a new pillow and fill it up with these cloth pieces or something or other. They'll keep on finding uses for these things, and in the end, maybe they will use it for wiping their hands. Then finally, after everything has been done, maybe they will use it for burning firewood, so lighting up the fire. So people use things till a proper conclusion. They don't just waste or throw it away. And that comes from basically a lot of effort that comes in producing it in the first place. So attitude is extremely important. This attitude we can see in India particularly, where woman is treated as Shakti. A woman has a very strong visualization power. She has a very matured emotion and very strong emotion. If she invests that emotion into anything, whether it's the growth of a child or it is creating of resources or peace or anything, if she puts that energy into it, you be rest assured it is going to happen. And that is why woman was called as Shakti, because she has that energy to create things, to create anything, to make anything manifest. So, and a person, if he can learn from this, he can start treating everything as a subject of respect. In fact, even the hunters, the tribal hunters, when they kill a certain animal, they really pray and say, "We are really sorry. We have to consume you. We need food, and that is why we are doing it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it." So this is a For a long time, in fact, tribals did not cultivate. They said plowing the land is like, how can you plow your mother's chest? The land is like my mother. And they would this is called chum cultivation, where they would cut down a very wild plant and then let it dry. And just before, then they would know when the monsoon was going to set in. And whenever it was going to rain a couple of days back, they would burn it, and they will watch the monsoon also and the heat also. And when the heat is quite low, it's not enough to destroy the seed, they will sprinkle seeds. And then the monsoon comes, and these seeds grow very fast because the land was very rich in with ash and warm ash. So these plants would grow, and they would have various millets growing. So if something did not grow, something did not go as planned, another millet would grow, and so they would always get something out of that land. But the attitude was that the land is my mother. It is providing me food. I must not blow it. So, but nowadays things have changed over a period of time as organized communities came up. They saw the need to plow the land, and they overcame this instinct. Uh, but a lot of people still go with by that Jhum cultivation. They don't plow the land. They still remain in the forest. So the current situation, of course, is changing because the government is forcing them to settle down in one place, not move around in the forest, not because it seems they're moving around in the forest is disturbing for the government also, because not all of them are very, very disciplined sometimes. Like some people can be childish. And this also causes a situation where it hampers government activities or government's intention to protect the forests. Of course, I personally feel that these people must be made partners in the forest growth, because they can make sure that the forest is well protected if they know what is to be done and how it is to be done. Their children have to be taken care of, their families have to be taken care of, but they should be allowed to be themselves. But unfortunately, this has not yet happened. Eventually, I think it will have to happen, because you cannot have a situation where you are taking care of forest with employed people. It is not very practical. Employed persons can be only so many, and they cannot be everywhere. So the archetype of woman as Shakti, or nurturer, or supporter of everything, all resources, creator of all resources. This is and respect towards it is an attitude that has to be built up. Different so-called pagan systems had similar ideas, but it was only in India that it got nurtured and cultivated well. Others eventually fell prey to the patriarchal and destructive system of religions and a market system which was based on exploitation and war. And this is leading the world into intellectualized decision making and destruction on all fronts, as profit and not nurturance is turning out to be the sole deciding factor. So all that we receive things from, we slowly begin to objectify. Same goes with the women also, and especially the slave trade really objectified women a lot, because the women were treated as objects, as slaves, which is an unfortunate thing that it happened. And the systems that have evolved out of them have been always in war or cause of war, which is basically because they simply don't have the respect. They are incapable of that respect. It somehow is not there in their system. Uh, India has been lucky in various ways. And when I say India, I normally mean responsible people in India. You cannot pick up small tribes and say, "Oh, they are doing these things. You are saying that it is like this." No, it is people who have an understanding, who have been part of the mainstream communities. They usually share that knowledge. Even today, if there's an invention or a discovery or understanding, you cannot expect that for every person to have that. And that is why in India we are facing a lot of problem of waste management. So it is necessary that we have the right focus, right understanding, and collecting, grabbing, robbing, killing, cheating. These are all immature traits. If anybody is doing it, it only shows one's immaturity. Collectors and gatherers never realized what they were doing, and which may have been natural initially, had now become a criminal act because of the sheer reality that other societies had evolved towards an organized order where they had begun to settle down and taken to plowing as mode of agriculture and trade as a means of exchange. The criminalization was further aggravated due to lack of agricultural resources and needs of the communities that bred animals and needed to continue as wanderers to make best of the lands for pasture. Trades took various forms, and those who thrived on providing for big projects and bigger tribes and kingdoms took to trade of humans, and they thrived on loot and trade of unsuspecting communities and the resources in their regions across the world. The economy that is thus generated is a very hollow economy. It only lasts so long, and the lifestyle and belief systems also are very shallow. They may have some organized systems, or some, but at the same time, they are very shallow, and we find that they don't really solve problems in the long run, and they keep pushing the world to violence as the core belief remains the same: survival at all costs, and treat everything in world as an object for exploitation. So these are some of the results of a negative system. The tribal, tantric, and cultural wisdoms subscribe to the idea that what nurtures us, what supports us, cannot be an object. It can only be a subject of respect. Woman stands for all of that in its archetypal form. Nature has to be respected. Woman has to be respected. Others have to be respected. Both animate and inanimate in the same as the same, or both alike. Our upbringing decides what are we going to be or how do we respond to the different situations. A person's behavior reflects his past and the values he was brought up with. If you look at the world around you and try to see how they sustained themselves a couple of centuries back, that will give you a fair idea of why the world is facing the violence it faces. The world has to learn a lot from India in particular and agricultural communities in general. Indians themselves have to learn a lot from Indian past and heritage. I will address the caste propaganda, as I said, in the next talk. Now, here, by Indian past and heritage, we imply the learnings and wisdoms, and by Indian, we imply the documented learnings. Not to be confused by negative experiences of growing communities. Seeing communities or leaders in isolation would also be detrimental to our own learning, as we run the risk of either not seeing the holistic picture or getting caught in the endless debate of the novices. A lot of people try to say that one must scrape surface to discover, confirm their own beliefs. However wrong it may be, incomplete it may be, or misplaced it may be. So recently I had a conversation. Many times I have had this kind of conversations, and it was this time the person was saying it was related to Ayodhya, and one gentleman said it was earlier Saket, and it was actually Buddhist, and it was Vedics who appropriated it and superimposed Rama upon it. This is factually incorrect. Ayodhya is a center of devotion and not really center of study. So there's no role of Vedics at all. Even now, most of the institutions which are there are devotion related institutions, the Hindu institutions, the Vaishnava institutions, let us say. To be more precise, I do not know how many Vedic institutes are there, but even if you find out where they were, when did they come into existence, you will find that they are very recent. Moreover, Rama was born far before Siddhartha, who later came to be known as Buddha. So it is foolish to say that Buddhism was there and before that. So now if you try to question them like this, they will say, oh, your Buddhism is not from Buddha, it was from centuries before. Yes, I agree it is from centuries before. But was Rama part of the same system? So, and even if it was the same system, and if it was the same system, the problem is solved. But even if it were parallel systems, two different systems, it is quite possible one part of Ayodhya had this system, one part of Ayodhya had that system. Quite possible. In case of Buddha, we know this very well, that it is said that many times Mahavira and Buddha stayed in Gaya at the same time. Both were in different streets and both did not know each other. Both had not met each other. So all these things are possible. So it is foolish to say that this was superimposed on somebody else. Culturally, there is also proof to show that once Buddhists began to be patronized by the rulers of the local tribes, the local tribes which got divided into those who wanted to stick to their moorings and those who wanted to live by the teachings of Buddha, which did lead to violence, and local devotees rallied behind their leaders, and group of armed devotees were formed to protect the local places of worship against the rulers and their loyals' effort to take over the lands and places of worship of local tribes. These armed devotees were mobilized eventually by Guru Adi Guru Shankaracharya into akhadas as Nagas. So this is again, I'm taking the examples from the Dashnama Sannyas community or the records of the Dashnama Sannyas community, because I come from that community and I have better information about it. There were Vaishnava Akhadas also, Vaishnava Nagas also. They're called Tyagis, Bairagis, Digambaris. So they have their own names. And similarly, you have also among the Aptavachanis. Aptavachanis are people who follow the words of a wise person. So Nirmalis, Nihangis, these are all Aptavachana people. They respect a certain book or text, and they go according to the mandate of the text itself. They don't have idols and they don't worship personalities. At best they treat the personalities as their teachers. And these people then rallied against the Mughals, called for destruction of temples or taking over of lands, who later were remobilized to protect temples and its devotees against the Islamic soldiers. And this was done with the patronage of Swami Madhusudan Saraswati, who went and Jalaluddin Akbar, and he spoke to him and told, we need to raise our own people because we are facing threats from your soldiers who are not sent by you, but they go around in their passage, in their process of collecting taxes. They destroy temples, they loot temples, and we need to protect ourselves. So we need a force that can do this. So he gave the permission to raise this army of Nagas. So now Nagas were already there; they were remobilized, and this is. As I said, that for others, I would have to do deeper study to give you more accurate examples, how it happened among Udasis, or how it happened among Nats, or how it happened among Vaishnavas. So these are all different communities. Community created by the son of Guru Nanak, who had become a monk, who had become a sannyasi. And the system that he created, the rules that he created, the people who follow that, they are called Udasis. To understand this and what probably is the truth, we shall take different example as the realities there exist have been for many places. We all know about the Kailasha mountain. Kailasha is supposed to be the abode of Lord Shiva by Shaivites. But locals have their own names and terminologies. Some may not even worship it as abode of Shiva, but worship it as a mountain itself. Tibetans also have their cultural moorings to the mountain. So who is appropriating what? That kind of claim is slightly misplaced. And Tibetans who are now Buddhist have not been Buddhist forever, and they have had respect for the mountain far before Buddha was ever born. So we have to see things more objectively. Next is, suppose tomorrow various parties involved to assert their right have a bigger pie in the earnings of tourist contributions begins to assert itself. Will it not have friction? So now, if there are minimum two parties fighting for the bigger pie of the gains, come along few responsible people who say that, look, whatever you want to fight. It's none of our business. But when we are coming here for worship, we do not want any kind of disturbance. We don't want to face all this violence. So this must stop. And normal devotees must not get affected, and there must be some kind of regularization. So now, whoever is stronger and more acceptable will naturally gain a greater bargaining hand. So now in India, there were various thought processes, views, and philosophies. I mean, recorded ones are around 12. The documented ones, or the ones which have a certain kind of recognition among the academicians. The philosophy that focused more on essential truths of creation in a more scientific manner was naturally more accepted among the academicians, and what could be explained more systematically with proper logic and proofs was naturally more acceptable to kings with larger kingdoms, because the kings were people who were of reason most of the times, in India at least, and they wanted lesser troubles. They wanted to trade. They wanted to activities to go on peacefully. They did not want to keep on pulling their men out from the bunkers to go for war. So they chose to be more logical, scientific, and acceptable ideas. And this is where Vedas and Vedic came in, and they constituted groups that had repositories of vast knowledge. Next is who must be the next question would come, who must be the face of this solution or talk of it? Naturally had to be someone who had no personal interest. This is where the sannyasis came in, particularly those who were more into meditation, contemplation, and study. These naturally were Shaivites, as others do tend to have other cultural and personal priorities. This is how slowly Vedics, who most often happens to be Shaivites, gained ground. Vaishnavas too had similar forces, but even though they had much greater following as they propagated working for Lord and not extreme renunciation, they lagged in drive for asserting as well as acceptance of non-biased, as the following was devoted, agenda-driven, and many times judgmental. Unlike Shaivites, who were much more open and all-embracing and less judgmental, and even less organized, and therefore had lesser antagonism against them, going on against them. Buddhism, being comparatively a new group, like the most infant cults, was not holistic enough, and like most new religious groups, does not have the templates for fulfillment of emotional needs of faithfuls. And within India, due to availability of options, was unable to sustain itself. And with new life after coming of Adi Guru Shankaracharya, who was able to gain more acceptance due to his erudite expressions, logical explanation for well analyzed answers, was able to convince the rulers better, who had begun to see the decay of Buddhism as a community for state patronage and could see the possibilities and scope of Buddhist of the Vedic system and resumed to patronize it. Soon, Jainism came in, which was able to survive better as it held extreme renunciation as the instrument of spirituality and was also able to provide recourse to the warrior communities. This is what I have heard. I don't have documented evidence to this. That these warrior communities, especially after the Parashuram episode, had been sidelined for very long due to community and clan intrigues. And these people chose Jainism as a shelter in faith and identity. The close-knit formation and extreme renunciation that they followed has kept the community flourishing in face of many challenges that the various orders face. Coming back to the topic of three pillars and four truths, we need to see Indian system, which is in fact does not have a nomenclature as such, but have processes in place which have sacred intent and respect for the forces of nature, market, and life alike. We need to recognize that this fact and ensure that we are on the right side and have a bridge in place for those on the other sides and willingness to cross in. So just saying that you're superior is not enough. Just being superior also is not enough. If you are superior, you became superior because of your practice, your intent, your upbringing. And you need to reach out to the other person. That is what mentoring and nurturing is about. That is what sharing is about. So you need to make possible for the other person also to try out whatever you try. And you also need to try out what others are doing to see the value in whatever they are doing or where are they not able to proceed or not able to see reason. And then only we can coexist. We need to recognize this fact that we are on the right side and then we have a bridge in place. Economies that evolved out of scavenging dead bodies and reducing civilizations to rubble until yesterday were dealing in slaves, humans as slaves, and today are peddling chemicals and drugs in some form or other. And death has in resorting to violence and wars to keep the economy afloat are hollow, exploitative, and scavenging economies. These economies are neither civilized nor can sustain civilizations. They thrive on others' death and destruction. Bharat is the antithesis. Bharat is where knowledge is the ruling factor. Bharat is that where knowledge illumines and rules. Knowledge determines the actions of the people and rulers alike. The glitter and glamour of such civilizations far outlast the glitter and glamour of warmongering scavengers. It is not that we did not have wars, yet these were just to sustain life by forcing people or tribes to think beyond violence. Wars were fought ethically, and local population was never affected due to wars. The invaders brought in a different kind of war that was never respected here, and the rulers and warriors were left between devil and the deep sea because they knew that the kind of war that was being unleashed upon them they could not really win unless they also broke the rules. But the problem was if they won and went back home, they would never be treated with respect. So they had to stick to their rules, and they kept losing many times. A war fighting mechanism that could not one that one could not fight and go back with respect in one's own eyes, and a war that could not be won without breaking the rules of civilized community. The war, unfortunately, is not over yet. The war is still going on. There are people who are unleashing various kind of wars on this country. We need to learn to be strong. We need to learn to be well informed about our systems. We need to treat our systems with a lot of respect. If it is not worthy of respect, then it just need to be disposed of, which I don't think is necessary nor is true. So that is necessary, and we need to be prepared for this new kind of war that is being unleashed upon us. We need to be as one. Politically, the religions that existed in India were separated, and the royal authorities took care of the citizens. And that's why we have a very clear distinction between what is religion and what is state. But this is not about the tribal religions that have now expanded, but they have not been able to segregate themselves away from power and politics, and stick to religion as means of taking care of the faithfuls. So today again we revised and discussed the origin of the word Bharat. We also talked about the three pillars of what makes Bharat. That it is about knowledge, about nations that come together based on understanding and for knowledge, for growth of the nations, for the growth of their personal growth also. They come together. And the three things which are required are: one is sharing, second is mentoring or nurturing, cultivating, and the third thing is education, critical thinking. And then we need to have the attitude towards of respect. This can start with the ladies in our environment. We can learn how to respect them. We'll get a good feedback. We will see how much effort we have put in and what is the result. And then we can move on to respecting everything that is helping us, everything that is providing resources to us. We can learn to respect. This was for today. Be seated in any comfortable posture, eyes gently closed, body straight and still. Become aware of the calm, relaxed flow of breath. Become aware of the calm inhalation and exhalation. Breathing in fresh air, breathing out, relax your whole body. Bring your awareness to the eyebrow center. Visualize a bright red rising sun in the eyebrow center. Become aware of the brightness, the shape, the color. I'll chant Om 3 times, then a Vedic hymn. If you wish to join, take a deep breath in. Om. पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेव अवशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ओम्. Hari Om Tat Sat. Bring your palms together, rub your palms. Feel the warmth in your palms. Cross your fingers, place them on your eyes 3 times. Then gently open your eyes.